Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's story is about music, memory, and the quiet power of showing up when it matters most. If you've ever lost someone, or longed for a second chance that felt impossible, this story might hit closer to home than you think. What if the daughter you never knew was already singing the song you once wrote from heartbreak? And what if the only way to reconnect was to earn her trust, not with words, but with music? So grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's dive into the forgotten melody. A tale of a broken man, a powerful voice, and the daughter he never knew he needed. Let's begin. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. It slid down the wide, tinted windows of Ethan Wells's penthouse like the silence in his life. Constant, gray, and without rhythm. Ethan sat alone at his grand piano, fingers hovering above the ivory keys, unmoving. His hands, once praised for discovering the next big sound, had forgotten how to create. Decades had passed since he last wrote a melody that meant something. His phone buzzed on the marble counter behind him, but he didn't move. He didn't need more contracts, more praise, or more wealth. Not anymore. Then came the knock. His housekeeper, Lena, poked her head through the door. "Sir, there's a courier. Says it's urgent. Hand delivery." Ethan raised an eyebrow but nodded. Minutes later, a weather-stained envelope lay in his hand. No return address, just his name in shaky cursive. He slid a knife under the seal. "Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I kept something from you, and I don't know if it's right to tell you now. But secrets rot the soul, and mine is already halfway there." It was from Raymond Delco, his former assistant, who had retired a few years back after being diagnosed with cancer. Ethan remembered him as loyal, discreet, and far more moral than most of the industry sharks. "Her name is Maria. Her mother was Elena Lopez. You remember her, Ethan? You should. She worked backup vocals on the West Coast sessions in '97. She never asked you for anything. She just wanted her daughter to know where she came from. But I never passed that message on. I'm sorry." Ethan's hand trembled. "Maria's in a place called Seabrook Bay. Plays guitar on the street. Sometimes works at a record store called Maxwell's. You should go. If you want to know what love sounds like, she's singing it." He dropped the letter, and it fluttered to the floor. The storm outside swelled, thunder vibrating through the bones of the penthouse. Ethan stood in the silence. Elena Lopez. God, he remembered her laugh, smoky and effortless. She'd vanished after that summer tour, and he never thought to ask why. The label swept things under the rug, as they often did, and he had been too busy chasing charts and carving out empires to care. Now there was a daughter, his daughter, and she was singing in a place called Seabrook Bay. He had everything: platinum plaques, a legacy in sound. But the idea of a woman on a cold sidewalk playing his forgotten melody made his chest ache in a way no Grammy ever had. He packed that night. No assistant, no limo, just him, his car, and a letter that refused to stop echoing in his mind. By morning, he was on the road. Seabrook Bay wasn't on any tour map. It was a sleepy coastal town where time drifted like fog and tourists came only to forget the world for a weekend. But Ethan Wells was heading there to remember. Seabrook Bay smelled like salt and second chances. Ethan drove down its quiet streets, past faded storefronts and shuttered cafes. The town was a relic, part postcard, part ghost. Locals walked slowly, like they weren't rushing to catch anything. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and a stranger stuck out like a wrong chord. He parked near the boardwalk just as the sun slipped behind the horizon, painting the sky in soft bruises of lavender and gold. The ocean whispered nearby, waves folding into each other with hypnotic ease. And then he heard it, a voice soft, husky, raw. A guitar followed, its notes drifting through the salty air like they belonged there. Ethan followed the sound, his steps quickening with every chord, heart pounding like a kick drum. She sat under a crooked lamppost, a battered guitar across her lap. A battered fedora lay open beside her, holding only a few crumpled bills and coins. Her hair was long, dark, and messy in a way that looked effortless. Her eyes, deep brown, almost black, were closed as she sang, lost in the song. And the melody, he froze. It was his. Not quite, not note for note, but unmistakably from a song he'd once written in a haze of heartbreak and left unfinished. She had changed it, built something better on its bones, layered it with sorrow and warmth and defiance. Her voice cracked on the chorus, and Ethan's eyes stung. Not from the note, but from the truth of it. Maria. She finished the song, opened her eyes, and looked directly at him. There was no recognition, of course. Just the guarded glance a woman gives a man who's lingered too long. "You want a CD?" she asked, her voice cool and dry. $10. No refunds if you cry. He almost laughed. "That your original?" "Yeah," she said, standing and brushing off her jeans. "Stole the bones of it from an old recording I heard once. Don't remember the name." Ethan swallowed. "You play here often?" "3 nights a week," she said. "Tips are better when the wind doesn't blow sand into my teeth." He nodded. "You're really good." Maria smirked. "You're not from here, are you?" "No," he said. "I'm just passing through." She tucked her guitar into a case with frayed straps, then slung it over her back like armor. "Well, stranger, enjoy your pass-through." And then she walked away. Ethan stood there, heart roaring in his ears. The urge to chase her, to blurt out the truth, pressed against his chest. "I'm your father." But what came after that? An apology? A hug? A slap? Instead, he whispered to himself, "She's real." And he stayed the night in the cheapest motel he could find. A place that smelled like seaweed and mildew, staring at the ceiling, haunted by a melody he'd long forgotten and a daughter he'd just found. The next morning, Seabrook Bay was wrapped in fog. Ethan sat at the corner booth in Maxwell's Record Haven, a cramped little shop that smelled like old vinyl and fresh coffee. He sipped a bitter Americano and tried not to look like a billionaire who didn't belong. Maria was behind the counter, sorting through a crate of used CDs. She wore a flannel shirt 2 sizes too big and earbuds that barely hid the rhythm she swayed to. Every now and then, she hummed a few bars out loud, unbothered by anyone listening. Ethan didn't approach her yet. He watched instead, trying to piece together the woman behind the melody. She spoke to customers with an easy smile, but there was distance behind her eyes, a kind of practiced warmth that disappeared the moment no one was looking. A wall. He recognized it because he wore one too. Eventually, she noticed him. "You again," she said, pulling one earbud out. "Didn't take you for a vinyl guy." "I'm full of surprises," Ethan replied. "Sure," she said. "You look more Wall Street than Backstreet Boys." He chuckled. "I used to be in the music industry, actually." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Used to?" "Yeah, a long time ago, before the suits ruined the soul of it." Her gaze softened just a little. "That's what I keep saying." Ethan nodded at the display behind her. "You got anything of yours recorded? I'd love to hear more." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because you've got something rare. Real." Her lips parted, surprised. Then she reached under the counter and handed him a slim jewel case with hand-drawn cover art. $5, but only because you didn't talk through my set last night." He pulled out a 20. She frowned. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's belief." That earned him a long, searching look. She took the 20, slid it into the register, and said quietly, "No refunds if it breaks your heart." Ethan smiled, but inside, something cracked open. He left the shop and sat in his rental car for a full hour before pressing play. Her voice poured through the speakers, raw, imperfect, and beautiful, and layered in the harmony was a piece of him. A chord progression, a melodic twist, something she couldn't possibly have known unless the music lived in her blood. He closed his eyes. How do you tell someone the truth without shattering them? He wasn't ready, but he couldn't leave either. That night, he returned to the boardwalk. Maria was playing again, this time under a canopy of string lights from a nearby cafe. The small crowd clapped politely. Couple held hands. A child danced barefoot on the planks. Ethan stood at the edge of the gathering, hands in his coat pockets, heart full of a song he didn't yet know how to sing. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Ethan had always believed music was the purest form of truth. But now, standing in a quiet bookstore cafe beside Maria, sipping lukewarm tea and watching her scribble lyrics into a coffee-stained notebook, he realized something. Some truths were too fragile to be spoken, even in song. It had been a week since he'd arrived in Seabrook Bay. A week of subtle gestures and unspoken confessions. He never pushed. He bought her coffee, listened to her stories, laughed at her jokes. She'd started calling him City Man with a teasing smirk, but there was less suspicion in her eyes now. Still, the wall remained. "Why'd you leave the industry?" she asked him one afternoon as they sat beneath a sun-bleached umbrella near the harbor. Her guitar case rested at her feet. As always, Ethan took a breath. "It started feeling like I was selling lies with rhythm." Maria nodded like she understood. "That's why I never chased a label. They just sand me down into something I'm not." "You're smart not to." "I didn't have a choice," she said softly, eyes focused on the horizon. "My mom passed when I was 19. Cancer. Took everything we had." Ethan's stomach clenched. "She used to sing," Maria added, voice drifting. "Only when she was doing dishes or brushing my hair. I think she was good. But I only remember the sound, not the details. Just this warm hum, like a lullaby." Ethan closed his eyes. "Alina, she told me once," Maria said, "that my dad was in music, said he left before I was born. Never said his name. Guess she didn't want me looking for him." "What did you think of him?" Ethan asked carefully. Maria shrugged. "Sometimes I imagined he was a good guy who made a mistake. Other times I thought he was just another coward with a guitar." Silence stretched between them, heavy and sharp. Ethan didn't speak. He couldn't. The truth sat like a stone in his throat. That night, Maria didn't play on the street. Ethan, restless, wandered the boardwalk alone. His phone buzzed, Vanessa, his COO, again. He ignored the call, let the empire crumble. He didn't care. When he returned to his motel, a surprise waited outside. Maria. She sat on the hood of his car, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. "You knew my mother," she said. Ethan froze. "How?" She held up the CD case he'd bought. On the back, in faint ink, were the production credits. His name, Ethan Wells. "I Googled you," she said. "Didn't take long. You're not just some guy passing through. You used to run half the industry." He lowered his gaze. "I was going to tell you." "When?" Her voice cracked. "After another song? Another coffee? I didn't want to break it," he whispered. "Whatever this is between us. I was afraid you'd hate me before I had a chance to know you." Maria stepped closer, fury dancing in her eyes. "Are you my father?" The question cut through the air. Ethan nodded. She stared at him for a long, hollow second. Then she laughed. A sharp, aching sound. Of course you are." "I didn't know," he said, stepping forward. "Your mom never told me. I swear." Maria held up a hand. "No, just stop." Her voice was steel. "You don't get to show up after 26 years and expect anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding. You gave me silence, and I learned to live inside it." He nodded, barely able to breathe. "You're right. I always wondered why I wrote songs no one else understood. Why I could feel something unfinished inside me. Guess I know now." She turned to go, then hesitated. "I don't know what hurts more," she whispered. "That you left, or that you were right here, and I almost trusted you." Then she walked away, leaving Ethan under the glow of the street lamp, surrounded by music he could no longer hear. For 3 days, Maria vanished. No late-night boardwalk sets, no coffee shop run-ins, no banter behind the record store counter. It was as if the town had swallowed her whole, and for Ethan, the silence was unbearable. He wandered the streets of Seabrook Bay like a ghost, her voice echoing in his memory. "You gave me silence, and I learned to live inside it." He repeated those words like a curse, like a prayer. On the 4th morning, desperate for any trace of her, Ethan returned to Maxwell's record haven. The bell above the door jingled with painful familiarity. Gus, the store owner, an old man with a vinyl obsession and a heart softened by decades of heartbreak ballads, watched him from behind the counter. "She called in sick," Gus said before Ethan could ask. "Hasn't done that in years. You must have really stepped in it." Ethan sighed. "I didn't know I had a daughter, Gus. Not until a week ago." Gus leaned back, arms crossed. "Well, you do, and she's a damn good one. Raised herself, buried her mother alone, never asked for help, even when she should have." "I want to fix it," Ethan said. "Can't fix this with apologies," Gus replied. "Or money. She's heard all the wrong chords before. If you want her to hear something different, you'd better play it." That night, Ethan returned to the boardwalk. The same crooked lamppost, the same folding chair she used. But this time, he was the one with the guitar. Felt strange in his hands. Too light, too familiar. The last time he played publicly, the crowd numbered in the thousands. Now only the wind listened. He cleared his throat, then began to play. It wasn't perfect. The chords were stiff, and his fingers stumbled on transitions. But the melody was raw, unguarded, and heartbreakingly familiar, because it was hers. He played her song, the one she had written, and then he let it fall into the one he had written all those years ago. They folded into each other like pages of the same book. Two halves of a whole neither knew they had been writing. People gathered, quietly, curious, and from across the crowd, Maria appeared. She stood at the edge, her expression unreadable. He finished the final note and let it hang there, trembling. "I didn't come here to fix you," Ethan said, setting the guitar down. His voice carried over the hush of the sea. "I came to finally face the part of myself I've been running from, and I found you instead." Maria didn't move. "I don't want your forgiveness," he added. "I want your trust, and if I have to earn it one broken note at a time, I will." Silence. Then Maria stepped forward. Slowly, she picked up the guitar. Her fingers brushed the strings once, twice. "You butchered the bridge," she said flatly. Ethan blinked. "I did," she nodded. "But you played it like it meant something." He didn't dare speak. Then she sat beside him. Not too close, but not far. "Next time," she said, tuning the guitar with deft fingers. "Don't forget the seventh chord before the chorus." And just like that, the wall cracked. Not crumbled, but cracked. They sat there in the soft glow of the lamppost, two strangers connected by unfinished songs and silent apologies. And for the first time, the music didn't feel lonely. A month later, the fog rolled in again. But this time, it didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a curtain waiting to lift. Maria and Ethan sat in Gus's shop, surrounded by old records and half-drunk mugs of cinnamon coffee. Between them sat a cheap USB mic, a battered laptop, and two acoustic guitars resting like sleeping dogs. The walls of the back room were papered with lyrics, hers in looping cursive, his in sharp block letters. They were writing a song, together. The verses came in fits and starts. The melody pulled from laughter, arguments, and late-night memories. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. "You think anyone's going to care about this?" Maria asked, one eyebrow raised as she adjusted a lyric. Ethan smirked. "I do." She rolled her eyes but smiled. Outside, Seabrook Bay buzzed with the small-town energy of an upcoming local music festival. Maria had been invited to perform, this time not as a sidewalk act, but as a headliner. She hadn't accepted, not yet, the idea of stepping onto that stage, not alone, but beside Ethan, terrified her more than the spotlight itself. "You don't have to do it," Ethan told her one night as they sat on the pier. "I don't want this to feel like pressure or penance." Maria stared at the ocean. "I'm not scared of the stage," she said. "I'm scared of letting you mean something." Ethan didn't answer right away. Then, gently, he said, "You already do." The night of the festival arrived with a breeze that carried the scent of sea and cinnamon kettle corn. The crowd gathered on the beach, bundled in hoodies, children chasing glow sticks in the sand. The The stage lights painted long shadows on the wooden planks. Maria stood backstage, her palms sweating. Her heart thudded in her chest like a broken snare drum. Ethan stepped beside her, wearing a plain black jacket, no trace of the mogul he once was. "Just us," he said. Maria looked out at the crowd, then back at him. "I wrote this song," she said slowly, "because of all the things I thought you'd never say." He tilted his head. "And now," she continued, "I'm going to sing it because you finally said them." The announcer called her name. They walked onto the stage together. Ethan took his seat at the piano. Maria stepped to the mic, guitar in hand. The lights hit her face, and for a breathless second, she closed her eyes. Then she sang. The first verse was hers alone, soft and piercing. The second, Ethan joined with piano. Their harmony was flawed, but beautifully human. And as the chorus swelled, the crowd leaned in. They weren't listening to perfection. They were listening to a reunion. After the set, the applause came, not thunderous, but real, like warmth spreading slowly through a cold room. Backstage, Maria didn't speak. She wrapped her arms around Ethan and held him like something she'd been afraid to lose. "You're not perfect," she whispered, her voice tight. "No," he replied, "but you showed up." He nodded. "And I'll keep showing up, even when the music stops." 2 years later, the sign outside Maxwell's had changed. Lopez and Wells Records. Vinyl, coffee, second chances. Maria's debut album, The Forgotten Melody, had become an indie favorite. Ethan never took a credit, not even a co-producer line. He just stocked shelves and fixed squeaky speakers. He still played piano at the pier every Thursday night, sometimes alone, sometimes with her. And every time they played, Maria would glance his way. Just once. He was her father now, not because he'd claimed the title, but because every day he earned it. Before we close, let's take a moment to pray. May we all be protected from arrogance and misjudgment, and may we all be protected from harm and injustice in our daily lives. May this story inspire us to treat others with empathy, no matter what they look like or where they come from. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever surprised someone with your hidden strength? We'd love to hear your story. Thank you for listening, and remember, the strongest people often look like the quietest ones. Until next time, stay strong, stay humble, and stay true.